disruption to the new normal. You have there the COVID-19, a global crisis for learning and teaching. So there are 191 countries have closed all their schools, affecting 1.5 billion students from pre-primary to tertiary education. So it says that with this pandemic has interrupted classroom learning for at least 9 out of 10 students worldwide. In our data there, as you can see, there are 50% of learners, which is 826 million, do not have household computers. And 43%, which is flexible learning, the dimension of learning and teaching on flexible learning, the integrated approach of flexible learning, and the basic of flexible learning. Before we move on to flexible learning, let's consider the transitioning from the education disruption to the new normal. You have there the COVID-19, a global crisis for learning and teaching. So there are 191 countries have closed all their schools, affecting 1.5 billion students from pre-primary to tertiary education. So it says that with this pandemic has interrupted classroom learning for at least 9 out of 10 students worldwide. In our data there, as you can see, there are 50% of learners, which is 826 million, do not have household computers. And 43%, which is 706 million, do not have household internet. And 56 million of learners do not have or use mobile because there are no mobile network in their area. Next is the data from the world map. As you can see there, the red color, those are the number of countries by information status as of June 8, 2020, the number of students in countries with fully closed school and the number of school closed. Number of countries where school closed. As you can see there, the seasonal school closure, which is one, is the Philippines. So before we move on with flexible learning, let's first know what is flexibility. So flexibility is defined as offering choices in the educational environment, as well as customizing a given course to meet the needs of individual learners. So there are a lot of scholarly articles and scholars who define flexible learning. So they said that learning in which specific factors such as content, time, space, mode, and pace are determined by the learner. Flexible learning refers to those who are interested in different way of learning, namely the e-learning, the m-learning, the online learning. Flexible learning provides learners with choices in where, when, and how the learning occurs. It is a set of educational approaches and systems concerned with providing learners with increased choice, convenience, and personalization to suit their needs. In particular, flexible learning provides learner with choices about where, when, and how learning occurs by using a range of technology to support the teaching and learning process. Another meaning that a broad term used to describe the design and delivery of programs, courses, and learning intervention in such a way as to cater the student demands for variety, access, recognition of diverse learning style, and student control over and customizability of the learning experience. It is often incorrectly used and interchangeably mannered with other terms such as the open learning, distance learning, the work-based learning, as well as the e-learning, which all of those instances are forms of flexible learning and that provide flexibility to the student in terms of time, pace, play, access, content, and other delivery mode. So thus, it is an approach to learning in which the time, place, and pace of learning may be determined by learners. The Commission on Higher Education Chairman, Prospero de Vera, says that flexible learning is a broader term that focuses on the design and delivery of programs, courses, and learning intervention that addresses learners' unique needs in terms of pace, place, process, and products of learning. So, what really is flexible learning and its environment? So the Deakin University Teaching and Learning Plan in 2008 of Australia presented the integrated approach to flexible education in an environment which includes where appropriate choice in. First, we have the time, including flexible entry and exit points at which study occur, the pace at which the learning proceeds, the place, both physical and virtual, in which the study is conducted, the content that is studied, the learning style adopted by the learner, the form of assessment employed, and the option to collaborate with others or to learn independently, how teaching is path and mix of the above used in any given course of unit. So these choices must be made within a framework which maintains sound and consistent academic standards in order to integrate the approach of flexible education in an environment. Next, in giving a greater control to the learner in the learning process, the teacher becomes the manager. The teacher also becomes the facilitator, in which the process by building suitable resources or facilitating access to them. So technology plays a central role in this process. Therefore, flexible learning is not a distinct educational mode, but it embraces, extends, combines a number of familiar, existing, and evolving approaches to learning and teaching. So, flexibility can be found in on-campus classroom learning, the distance learning, the open learning, the independent learning, the teleteaching, resource-based learning, computer-managed learning, computer-assisted learning, online learning, the mobile learning, multimedia learning, blended learning, and lastly, the virtual learning. So there are useful approaches to embedding flexibility that is to consider in relation to know, to how, and to what extent it is being integrated and leveraging key dimensions of learning and teaching And these are as follows. First, we have the learning experience design. It is about the design and development of product, learning experiences, so that each learner is able to make most of the learning opportunities they afford. The learning content engagement. It is about learners' engagement and interaction with the subject matter in ways that suit individuals. It is able their individuals, their styles and approaches to studying and its time, place, and pace. Third, we have the learner-teacher engagement. This is about choices learners have in relation to the mode and method of their engagement and interaction with their teachers and tutors. Fourth is the learner-learner engagement. This is about choice learners have in relation to mode and method of their engagement and interaction with their peers in a small and large group and in an offline and online educational settings. Fifth is the learner engagement with the learning environment. It is about adaptation and access to interaction and engagement with the learning environment, such as the use of mobile devices, the use of Wi-Fi, the access to internet, and innovation use of study space. Six, we have the learner engagement with assessment activities. This is both choices learners have in relation to the fulfillment of their assessment requirements. Seventh, we have the learner engagement with feedback. This is about the choices learners have in relation to access to feedback of their learning and assessment activities. Eight, the learning engagement with the institution. This is about choices learners have in relation to their engagement with the services of the educational institution. So those are the integrated 11 key dimensions of learning and teaching. Now, since we knew our learners, let's see to it which is right for your learners. So you need to know what is the right for your learners in terms of synchronous learning and asynchronous learning. What is synchronous learning? It is a type of learning that takes place in real time where a group of people are engaged in learning. Although learning occurs at the same time, learners don't have to be there in person or even in the same location. Synchronous learning enables learners to ask questions and receive answer on the spot without also collaborating freely to their co-learners. While the asynchronous learning is more learner-centered. It enables learners to complete courses without the constraints of having to be in a certain place at a certain time. As long as they have the access to the internet, asynchronous learners have the freedom to complete the course materials whenever they choose in form of any location. Although not taking place then and there, asynchronous learning still allows the opportunity for feedback. Learners are free to share thoughts and questions with instructor and fellow learners, though they may not receive an immediate response. So those are the asynchronous and synchronous learning. So remember, in asynchronous, you have their discussion board, quizzes, polls, emails, digital documents, recorded audio or video, recorded slide with narration, self-paced courses, While in Synchrnous, we have there the virtual classroom, live presentation, live text chat, instant messaging, live audio or video chat, live quizzes, and live polling. So now, this is the question, the reopening of school, when, where, and how. So it is one of the toughest and most sensitive decisions on political agendas today. So in response, the government deployed measures for learning to continue through platforms, televisions, and radio in what has been the most far-reaching experiment in the history of education. In the Philippines, the Department of Education learning delivery options under Learning Continuity Plan of 2020 to 2021. So they introduced blended learning, which is modular and face-to-face learning, distance learning, homeschooling, apprenticeship for senior high school student, and fifth is the face-to-face learning. The Commission on Higher Education promote the use of flexible learning. So it says that not necessarily online, but flexible learning, which combines the online and offline education. According to CHED Commissioner, the intention of flexible learning is to decongest the classroom, to reduce the number of students who go to the classroom at one time so that social distancing and health of the students can be protected. The approach of education should be anchored on the premises that learning must continue. Quarantine or not, learning must continue, and therefore it is everybody's responsibility to ensure that flexible learning is delivered during and after this crisis. So higher education institutions are repositories of innovation and vanguards of change. So in response to this flexible learning, Department of Information and Communications Technology, together with Commission on Higher Education, promote the free online for teachers, a free online training for teachers, a free webinar for teachers, or a free webinar for educators. So flexible learning together with this agency of the government, they form a program for a flexible learning system. So that is through Tech for Ed. So Tech for Ed stands for Technology for Education to gain employment, train entrepreneurs towards economic development. So not just the DICT and CHED promotes this flexible learning and help teachers on their online training and webinars. The Philippine Society of IT Educators also provide a free webinar series in collaboration and in cooperation with Commission on Higher Education. So those are some of the flexible learning seminars conducted by CHED through PSITE. So it's not just in a regional level, but also in a national level. So that's all for today. Thank you so much and see you in our open forum.